She was laughing like she'd forgotten I existed. Not politely, not casually. It was that breathless kind of laugh, the kind you save for someone who makes your heart skip. Except she wasn't looking at me. She hadn't even noticed I was standing behind her yet. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I wasn't supposed to arrive that early, but traffic had been lighter than expected, and I figured I'd surprise her. She told me the party started at 8 o'clock. It was 7:30. The rooftop lights were already glowing, the wine already pouring, and her loyalty already slipping. I stood frozen at the edge of the rooftop garden, one hand still gripping the gift bag I brought. A dumb little joke present I thought would make her laugh. But now her laugh was already spoken for. He was close, too close. His fingers were brushing her elbow in a way that said this wasn't new. His name tag read Kellen, and I didn't recognize his face, but I would never forget it after that night. "You know what I told him?" he said, smirking as he swirled his drink. I said, if she were my wife, she wouldn't need to bring a +1. She'd already be home with me. She covered her mouth like she was scandalized, but she didn't move away. Instead, she said, "Shush, he might actually show up. He, not Lel, not even my husband. Just he." That's when Kellen turned his head slightly and spotted me. For a heartbeat, he looked startled. Then came the smile. Wide, slow, deliberate. It was the kind of smile men wear when they think they've already won. He raised his glass toward me like a toast. And then, louder than necessary, he said, "You must be him." The table went quiet. Even she froze. I stepped forward slowly, calmly, like my whole body was made of glass. I set the gift bag on the table without a word, looked at her, then him, then back again. "I came early," I said. "Didn't want to miss the entertainment." I didn't shout. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't make a scene. That would have been too easy. Instead, I reached into my coat and placed a small envelope beside the champagne flutes. "Since you're both so close," I said, "I figured you might want to open this together." She stared at the envelope like it was a live wire. He chuckled, trying to play it cool. "What's this?" he asked. Inside was a single photo, not a print. A Polaroid of them in a car from 3 nights ago, lit by headlights. Her skirt was pushed up. I watched as his expression broke. First amusement, then confusion, and finally panic. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. I just turned and walked toward the elevator while she called my name in a voice I didn't recognize anymore. A voice that had lost its power. As the elevator doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of the rooftop, her frozen in place, him standing over the photo, the rest of her colleagues beginning to whisper. And that was only the beginning. They thought that moment was the worst part. It wasn't even close. I didn't go home after I left the party. I didn't drive, didn't call anyone, didn't cry or scream or throw my phone like some shattered cliché. I just walked through the streets lit up with laughter from restaurants and wine bars, past windows where couples toasted to anniversaries or flirted over shared plates, as if the world wasn't busy quietly burning beneath them. 2. I found myself in a parking garage 4 blocks away. That's where I sat cross-legged on the concrete next to the passenger side of my truck, replaying their faces in my head. Hers, a blank with guilt but not shame. His, amused at first but cracked at the edges when he saw the photo. That photo was only one of 4. I had more, not just pictures. Audio. See, I didn't plan any of this. I'm not a vengeful genius or some secret tech mastermind. I just got lucky with suspicion. For nights before the party, I've been waiting to meet Tessa for dinner. She told me she had a strategy meeting that ran late. The words were cold and rehearsed. Something in her tone made me take a detour. I didn't even think, just followed a hunch, like some part of me was already screaming that something was off. I drove by her office garage. Her car wasn't there, but his was. That part one found out later. What I saw that night was 2 shadows in the backseat of a parked Lexus near the east side overlook. I didn't approach. I didn't interrupt. I just parked far enough away, rolled down my window, and pressed record on the app one never thought I'd use for anything other than work memos. Their voices were unmistakable. She whispered things I hadn't heard her say to me in years, laughed in a way that sounded like freedom. And when he asked her if she was scared I'd find out, she said, "Lel wouldn't know a clue if it was taped to his face." That sentence lives in my bloodstream now. I listened to that recording 3 times that night in the garage. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I wanted to memorize it. Not the words, but how she said them. The ease, the certainty. By the time I did drive home, it was almost 3 a.m. I left the Polaroid envelope where it belonged on their table at the party. But I still had the other 3. One in my glove box, one under the dog bed, and one in her jewelry drawer. She found it the next morning. I heard the clatter from upstairs, like she'd knocked over her perfume bottles, trying to rip the drawer open. 30 seconds later, she was in the kitchen, pale, barefoot, shaking slightly, but trying to look composed. She had the photo in her hand, held like it might melt. "I can explain this," she said, her voice thin. I didn't look up from the coffee I was pouring. "No need," I said calmly. "You already did 4 nights ago in the car. Lexus, beige interior. You said I wouldn't know a clue." Her mouth opened then shut. She looked at me like she was trying to figure out who I was. But I wasn't sure she ever knew in the first place. "I made a mistake," she started, defaulting to the classic. "It didn't mean anything." "Don't," I interrupted. "Please don't insult me more than you already have. I know everything. I know about the lunch receipts you left in your coat, the matching gym sessions on your calendar, the second email you forgot to log out of, the one with the fake name." Silence. Her hands started to tremble. "That's not who I am," she whispered. I finally looked at her then. "You shouldn't have spent so much time pretending to be." She didn't cry. She just stood there. And for the first time, I watched her realize she wasn't the smartest person in the room anymore. She tried to walk toward me, maybe to touch my arm, maybe to soften me like she used to. But I stepped back. "I left something for you at your office," I said. "You'll find it after lunch." She blinked. "What?" I didn't answer because that wasn't for her. That was for him. What he didn't know was that one of the recordings I captured, the clearest one, had already been emailed to their company's internal ethics officer. Anonymous sender, encrypted timestamp, labeled as a security concern. And there was more because I wasn't done. She didn't go to work that day. She said she was sick, but I knew better. Her job didn't exactly allow sick days when you were on a performance-based bonus and just 1 step away from a regional promotion. No, what she really meant was that she was scared. She knew something was coming, but she didn't know how much of it was already in motion. I didn't gloat. I didn't even act like I noticed. I poured my coffee like it was any other Thursday and asked her if she wanted anything from the store. She shook her head, barely able to meet my eyes. I left the house, closed the door quietly behind me, and drove 3 blocks before switching vehicles. See, here's the thing people never assume about guys like me. Quiet, average, unremarkable. They think we don't notice, that we don't prepare, that we'll either forgive, fall apart, or fade into the background. What they don't realize is that silence doesn't mean stupidity. It means observation. And I have been watching for weeks. What Tessa didn't know was that I'd rented a second car under a different name, paid in cash. I'd been using it to shadow them. Not in some action movie kind of way. No, my approach was slower, cleaner. I collected patterns, routes, meeting places, parking lots, even the cafe where Nolan liked to work after hours with clients, which on more than one occasion was just her in workout leggings, pretending to care about pharmaceutical reports while their legs tangled under the table. I kept a notebook, time-stamped, photos clipped inside. No confrontation, no chaos. I just waited because I wasn't trying to destroy them. Not yet. I wanted them to destroy each other, and all I had to do was give them the right nudge. That morning, I drove straight to Nolan's gym. I knew he'd be there because his public training schedule was posted online. He liked to brag about his regimen. Likes, comments, hashtags. Easy to trace. I parked a few spots away and waited. At 10:17 a.m., he exited the building in full gear. Towel slung around his neck, chugging an energy drink like he thought it made him look interesting. I followed him back to his car, calmly, casually. Then, just as he was opening the door, I walked past and said only 5 words. "Check your email at noon." He blinked, confused. I didn't stop walking. I looped around the block, got back into my decoy car, and disappeared. He would spend the next 2 hours spiraling. I knew because I was watching him from a distance, pacing inside his office, snapping at someone on the phone, typing furiously, then checking his inbox every 2 minutes. At exactly 12 p.m., he received a forwarded message from a burner email account. The subject line was blank. The message only said, "This is how it starts." Attached were 4 files. One was the audio clip of him and Tessa in the Lexus. Another was a high-resolution image from inside the hotel lobby on the afternoon she was meeting her sister. The third, a screenshot of an internal company code of conduct clause highlighting violations of extramarital behavior with subordinates, especially within active reporting chains. The fourth, a short video clip, less than 8 seconds, grainy security footage from the side lot of the office building. Her stepping out of his car, fixing her blouse, laughing as she kissed him goodbye. I didn't hear the sound of the explosion, but I saw the aftermath. He left the office 20 minutes later looking like a man who'd just been mugged in daylight. Pale, sweating. On the phone again, but this time not yelling, just listening, face flat, staring at nothing. He knew, but he didn't know it all yet. That night, Tessa acted like nothing had happened. She made dinner, pasta, which she never cooks unless something's wrong, and kept asking if I was okay. I said I was fine. I even smiled. I told her the pasta was perfect. She looked relieved for a second. She believed it, but she didn't ask about work. Didn't mention Nolan. Didn't say why her phone kept vibrating with unread messages she pretended not to see. Later, after she went to bed, I stood in the hallway staring at her phone's reflection on the dark countertop. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to because I knew she was going to confess soon. Not because she wanted to, but because she'd feel the walls closing in. Because Nolan wouldn't go down quietly. Because the illusion was cracking. She thought I was passive, soft, forgiving. She didn't know what I'd already set in motion. And the moment she stepped out of line again, I'd let it all burn. The funny thing about people like Tessa is that they're not afraid of the truth itself. They're afraid of not being able to control how it's revealed. That's exactly what started to happen by the end of that week. The unraveling wasn't dramatic or explosive. Came in subtle ways. Her phone rang more often, but she picked it up less. Her posture stiffened when she entered a room. The way she looked at me shifted, like she was waiting for me to say something, but I never did. And that silence, it was killing her faster than any confrontation could have. I knew Nolan had cracked. He didn't show up for work the next day. Instead, I got a tip from a temp I discreetly hired through a freelance site, someone I paid to monitor basic office activity under the guise of being a facilities audit assistant. She messaged me a single sentence. He cleared his desk at 8:42 a.m. I smiled. Meanwhile, Tessa still hadn't brought him up, but she was clearly spiraling. She started drinking more at night. Not obviously, not messy, just a second glass of wine too quickly, then a third when she thought I wasn't counting. She began talking in half-truths about stress at work, about drama with a colleague. She even tested the waters by telling me that someone's wife had accused him of something inappropriate. I just nodded, let her flail. I didn't need to accuse her. I just had to let her walk into her own trap. What she didn't know was that my plan wasn't just about revenge. It was about exposure. Quiet, irreversible exposure. The kind that doesn't leave bruises, just silence and reputation loss. I'd already sent the files to 3 recipients at her company. 1 in HR, 1 in legal, and 1 anonymous tip line for misconduct. No names, just data, audio, timestamps, screenshots. I didn't frame it emotionally. I made it look like a compliance whistleblower. But I didn't stop there. I also printed one of the Polaroids, not the most graphic one, but suggestive enough, and mailed it to Nolan's wife. She lived in a different city. I made sure to send it from a neighboring state. No return address, just a yellow envelope and a sticky note with a message. Maybe ask him what happened in room 409. Let her do the rest. By Saturday morning, the temperature in our home had dropped below 0, even though the thermostat said 71. Tessa wasn't talking much. She was distracted, jumpy, trying too hard to smile at nothing. That evening, I came downstairs to find her in the living room staring blankly at the TV. The screen was on but muted. She wasn't watching it. She looked at me and asked, "Lel, are we okay?" That was her first real admission. The first time she couldn't pretend anymore. I sat down across from her slowly and leaned forward with my elbows on my knees. "That depends," I said. She flinched. "On what?" she asked, her voice small. I studied her. No makeup, hair loose. Not the version of her that impressed people, just the one that woke up next to me for 8 years and thought I didn't see her anymore. "On whether you're ready to tell me the truth," I said. Her lip twitched. She looked down. Then she did something I didn't expect. She reached for her phone, unlocked it, and slid it across the coffee table toward me. "Go ahead," she whispered. "Check everything. I have nothing left to hide." I didn't move. I didn't touch the phone. "Why now?" I asked. She swallowed hard. "Because something's happening. Nolan isn't returning my calls. I got pulled into a meeting with legal yesterday. They said someone filed a report, but they won't tell me who. There are rumors and I don't know what's true anymore. Lel, I don't even know who I can trust." I leaned back slowly, folding my arms. "That must be scary," I said. "Feeling like everything's slipping and you can't figure out who's behind it." She nodded, relief mixing with confusion. Then I said it quietly, clearly. "Now you know what it felt like to be married to you for the last 6 months." Her eyes widened. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. And that was the moment I knew. She finally realized I wasn't broken. I was just waiting. I stood up, left her with her thoughts, and walked to the kitchen. She still didn't know how many people already knew. How many friends were quietly distancing themselves. How many private circles she used to thrive in were now whispering her name in entirely new tones. Because I hadn't just revealed the affair, I changed the context around her. And her real punishment was still coming. It happened on a Tuesday, a gray, nothing special Tuesday. Tessa had gone into work that morning looking like a woman preparing for battle. Blazer, heels, a thin smile like armor. She didn't kiss me goodbye. She hadn't in days. Maybe she thought I wouldn't notice anymore, but I noticed everything, and so did the others. By noon, I got a text from my temp inside the building. One line again. She was called into the glass conference room. No laptop, HR only. I didn't respond. I just put my phone away and watched the clock. Tessa came home early. I heard the garage door open at 2:41 p.m., which was strange. She never came home before 6 o'clock. Her heels clacked once through the entryway, then silence. For a few seconds, I didn't move, just waited, letting the tension build. When she finally appeared in the doorway of my home office, she wasn't wearing her blazer anymore. Her makeup was smudged. She had that distant look, not crying, but drained, like someone had sucked the breath from her lungs. "They played a recording," she said quietly. I didn't answer. I let the silence stretch. She stepped forward slowly, like she was walking into an ocean. It was my voice. They said it came in anonymously. Legal's involved. Nolan's already gone. They're doing a review of every project I touched with him. They said I might be suspended pending findings. "Are you surprised?" I asked. She blinked, clearly not expecting that. "No, yes. I don't know. I thought it was over. I thought you and I..." She paused. "You've been so calm, so quiet. I didn't know what you knew or how much." I stood, not fast, not angry, just tall, like someone who's finally done pretending to be smaller than he is. "I knew everything, Tessa. Long before you ever saw that photo. Long before your company did." I stepped closer. "I gave you chances to be honest. You chose silence. You chose comfort. And now you're here trying to crawl back through a door you closed." She stepped back. Just once, but I noticed. I picked up a USB drive from my desk, a simple black stick with a red cap, and held it out to her. "This is what they heard," I said. "Every word you thought I'd never hear. Every whisper. Every laugh you gave to someone else while pretending I was enough." Her hand trembled as she took it. "Why did you do all this?" she whispered. Why not just leave me? Because leaving would have set you free, I said. And you didn't deserve to be free from this. You deserve to live inside the thing you created until the walls crumbled on their own. I turned and walked past her. And then she said something I didn't expect. I think I'm pregnant. I stopped cold. Her voice cracked as she repeated it. I haven't told Nolan. I haven't even taken the test. I was too afraid. I turned back to face her. Not angry, not shocked, just cold. You think that's going to fix this? I asked. Maybe? No, she whispered. But I thought you should know. I walked past her again toward the front door. Where are you going? She called out. To take a walk, I said. Because if I stay in this house for one more second with you and that sentence hanging in the air like it means something, I might actually forget how far ahead I already am. She didn't follow me. She didn't say another word. I didn't go far. Just to the park where we used to sit on Sundays and pretend we were happy. I sat on the same bench facing the same lake. And for the first time since this all began, I let myself feel the weight of what I was doing. It wasn't revenge anymore. It wasn't anger. It was freedom. And now I had a choice to make. Final one. One last move that would decide whether I walked away clean or made sure she never forgot me again. I pulled out my phone and opened a folder I hadn't touched yet. The last recording. One that I hadn't sent to anyone yet. I didn't listen to the last recording until that night. It had sat in my encrypted folder for over a week untouched. Not because I was afraid of what I'd hear, but because I already knew it wasn't meant for me. It wasn't evidence. It wasn't proof. It was something else entirely. It was a weapon, and it wasn't intended to hit Tessa directly. Not anymore. She had already lost too much. Her job was hanging by a thread. Her professional reputation had been gutted. HR was now combing through 2 years of her work correspondence, looking for inconsistencies and policy violations. I didn't have to push further. That part was already collapsing under its own weight. But Nolan still thought he had options. Still believed he could bury the fallout, pivot, start over in some new office with a different title. And the way I saw it, he hadn't been hit hard enough. Not where it counted. That final recording wasn't between Tessa and Nolan. It was Nolan and his father. A brief call, not more than 2 minutes. I had captured it by sheer coincidence. A phone conversation overheard when Nolan had stepped away from the car one night while Tessa waited inside. His voice was louder than he realized. He was pacing in the parking lot trying to calm someone down. I hit record on my phone from the passenger seat of my decoy car and got most of it. I'm not going to marry her, Dad. That was never the point. It's just fun, like a bonus plan with legs. His father said something I couldn't hear clearly. Probably a warning, maybe a threat. Nolan answered, Relax. She's not even that smart. If her husband hasn't figured it out by now, he never will. They don't make guys like that dangerous. Those words stuck. They don't make guys like that dangerous. I had that sentence looped 3 times in a row when I finally sat down and opened the file again. There was a part of me that wanted to just delete it. Walk away. Let them both rot in the slow crawl of their self-inflicted damage. But the other part of me, the part that remembered every subtle humiliation, every dismissive look, every time Tessa rolled her eyes behind my back when Nolan cracked one of his cheap power jokes, that part wanted it finished. So I packaged the audio carefully. I didn't send it to the company. I didn't send it to HR. I sent it to Nolan's father directly. It took me 2 hours to trace his personal email through an alumni database, old real estate registrations, and a community board listing from a yacht club Nolan bragged about once in a social media post. I masked the source and sent the audio with no message attached, just the subject line, bonus plan. Then I turned off my computer and made myself tea. Mint, no sugar. The next morning, Tessa was gone when I woke up. No note, no text, no scent of her perfume lingering in the hallway. Her closet was mostly intact, but a few items were missing. A travel bag, personal laptop, 2 pairs of shoes I recognized as her conference heels. A photo of us from 5 years ago was no longer on her nightstand. She didn't run. She retreated. The day was oddly quiet. I spent it in the garage fixing up an old wooden bench that we were supposed to stain together last summer, but never did. I didn't check my email until late afternoon. And when I did, there it was, an automated reply from Nolan's father's business account. Your message has been received. Actions will be handled internally. No reply is necessary. That was all, but it was enough. I never heard from Nolan again after that. Not directly. But I did get confirmation through my contact that his access badge was deactivated the following day. And 2 weeks later, his name quietly disappeared from the company's leadership page. No announcement, no farewell post, just a digital eraser. As for Tessa, she finally texted me 3 nights later at 2:13 a.m. I'm sorry for all of it. You didn't deserve any of this. I didn't reply because I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken either. I was something she never expected. Completely free of her. And I wasn't going back. I didn't vanish after she left. I just stopped being the version of me she recognized. When Tessa drove off into her temporary silence, she probably expected I'd break. Or maybe she hoped I'd chase her, try to salvage what little was left of the illusion. But I didn't, because by then, I had already started rebuilding my life without her in it, brick by intentional brick. That Saturday, I returned to a place I hadn't visited in years. My late uncle's cabin by the lake. It sat 2 hours north of the city, surrounded by pines and glassy water. The kind of place that didn't care who you were or what your spouse had done to you. The porch creaked the same way it did when I was a teenager. The smell of pine and dust hadn't changed. But what had changed was me. I didn't go there to escape. I went to remember who I was before she tried to make me invisible. Back then, I used to build things, real things, with my hands. Furniture, canoes, fishing docks. I hadn't touched a blade or chisel in over 3 years. Not since she called my hobby cute in front of her friends and suggested I upgrade to something digital. But now I felt the weight of wood in my palms again. And it was grounding, honest, something she couldn't ruin. For days I stayed off the grid. No emails, no texts, no noise from the wreckage I left behind. The only sound was wind, water, and the soft rasp of a hand plane smoothing out cedar boards. It was therapy without the couch. Freedom without applause. And then, on the 5th night, I got a visitor. A knock on the cabin door at 10:04 p.m. No headlights outside. No car, just one shadow on the porch standing still. I opened the door and there she was, Tessa. Rain clung to her coat like guilt. Her hair was damp, pulled back in a messy knot. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just dimmed. As if all the power she used to radiate had finally burned out from within. You weren't supposed to find this place, I said. I remembered it, she said softly. You told me about it once when we first met. You said it was where you'd go if you ever disappeared. And yet here I am. She looked past me at the glow of the fireplace and the unfinished canoe shell in the center of the room. Her eyes watered. You're building again. I'm healing. Silence. I didn't come here to fight, she said. Or beg. I needed to see you. I needed to see if you still hated me. I stepped aside just enough for her to stand under the porch roof but not cross the threshold. I don't hate you, I said. That would mean I'm still emotionally invested. Her lip trembled. I made everything worse. No, I replied calmly. You just made everything clear. She nodded slowly, like she expected that. I lost my job. They finalized it yesterday. No severance. My name's been quietly blacklisted in the region. Nolan. He won't even answer his phone. I'm radioactive. And you came here hoping what? I asked. That I forgive you. Hold you? Rebuild you? No, she said quietly. I came here because you're the only person I ever knew who built anything that lasted. Her words landed like a soft punch. Almost poetic, almost tragic. But they came too late. I studied her, really looked at her, and for the first time since we met, I didn't feel outmatched, outwitted, or overshadowed. I felt untouchable. I'm not your sanctuary, I said. I was your mirror. You just didn't like what you saw. She blinked, and a tear slipped down her cheek. I found out I wasn't pregnant, she said. False alarm. I didn't react. I didn't need to. She wasn't telling me that for closure. She was saying it because she didn't know what else she had left to offer. I should go, she whispered. I nodded once. Probably. She stepped back into the rain, and for a long moment, she stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up like she might still ask for something more. But she didn't. She walked back into the dark, vanishing between trees. And I didn't watch her go because this wasn't a goodbye. It was a finish line, and I had already crossed it long before she arrived. Weeks passed and not a single one felt like survival. They felt like awakening. Tessa never came back to the cabin. She didn't send letters, didn't try to call again, didn't beg for another conversation. I think somewhere deep down she understood that there wasn't a version of us left to revive. Not after what she'd done. And especially not after what I'd rebuilt in her absence. Because what I found wasn't revenge. It was something far more permanent. Peace. I stayed in that cabin for 6 more weeks. Long enough for the first frost to creep across the windows at night, and the leaves to fall in clusters like they'd waited all year for the silence. I finished the canoe, finished sanding the bench, finished the coffee table we were supposed to have in our first home, but never did because she thought it looked too rustic. I carved my name into the underside. Not ours, just mine. One morning, I got a letter forwarded to me from my lawyer. It was from her, short, handwritten, formal. Inside were 2 papers, the finalized divorce agreement and a check. She'd sold her car. It covered more than her share of the legal fees. No guilt trip, no hidden message, just closure. I signed and mailed it back the same day. Then I did something unexpected. I took the canoe out onto the lake and paddled to the other side to a small, empty clearing where I hadn't stepped foot since childhood. I brought with me the last photo of us, the one I kept hidden away, just in case I ever forgot why I left. I didn't burn it. I buried it. Not out of anger, out of completion. By December, I was back in the city. Not in our old house. I sold that. Too many ghosts in the walls. I bought a small loft near the edge of town, above a workshop space I now lease to myself. I make furniture again, sell it online, not for the money, for the movement, the honesty, the stillness of crafting something that doesn't lie to you. And a few months after settling in, someone walked into my store. Her name was Harper. She wasn't flashy. No designer sunglasses, no rehearsed charm, no need to dominate the space. She just walked in, ran her hand along a cherrywood desk I'd built, and smiled like it was the first real thing she'd touched in a long time. "You built this?" she asked. "I did," I said. She nodded. "Feels like it was built by someone who knows what falling apart is like." I laughed. Not bitter, just honest. We talked about materials, about lakes, about starting over. I didn't tell her everything. I didn't have to. She didn't ask to fix me, and that's how I knew I was finally okay. Months later, I asked her to come out on the canoe with me. She said yes. And as we sat in the middle of the water, surrounded by the quiet I once thought would drown me, I realized something. The man Tessa tried to break, he never came back.